My name is TaChelle Lawson. I'm the president of FIG Strategy and Consulting based in Las Vegas, Nevada. Today I am back with another unpopular opinion, and it's about how DEI consultants have destroyed DEI. There, I said it. Before we get into the discussion, please take a second, it only takes a second, to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure that the notifications are on so you find out when I drop another video. And last but certainly not least, comment. Tell me what you thought about the video. Tell me what you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion after watching the video. And you tell me if you think that the problem really was DEI consultants. Let's get started. DEI. What is it? Many of us are just over it. We're tired of hearing about it. We're tired of being told we have to attend a DEI training. We're tired of being told that we should care about DEI. It has become probably one of the most hated topics in the country right now. And I get it. I really do. I get it. But let's examine why and how we got to where we are today in 2024. In order to do that, we need to go back to 2020, when it all started. As we sat in our living rooms, eating probably way too much as a result of the pandemic, the entire world was available to see and witness the killing of George Floyd. What happened after that is what brought us to where DEI is today. There was the social movement, a demand for equity, a demand for justice. And corporations responded with, we're going to do better about diversity. Because we just saw what it looks like to be a Black man. Now, I'm lumping that into something really broad, but that's essentially what happened. White people were scared. They were terrified, horrified at the idea that people would look at them and think that they were racist if they didn't respond. I'm going to say that again. Leaders were terrified that if they did not respond, I as a consumer, I as an employee, would take that as they're okay with that. They think that that man deserved to be killed because he was Black. Now, is that true? I don't think so. But we all know what happens when an incident is fresh and emotions are raw. You just respond. And that is what happened. The demand for justice was far greater than the reasoning and the strategy that should have come along with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what ended up happening were people were reacting. So this demand for justice didn't creep into the corporate world, didn't creep into boardrooms. It kicked the door down. And as a result, we started to see these major changes. Press release after press release. And we're talking from major companies. Apple, Bank of America, Chase. All these organizations were saying, we're going to do better. We're going to do better. We're not going to stand for racism. We're not going to stand for inequities. We're just not standing for it. And so what do? After the press releases came the promotions. Now, this is where it gets really sticky because the opinions on this are polar opposite. The promotions weren't all smart decisions. I'm going to say that again. The promotions were not all smart decisions. They were reactive decisions. Now, I'm speaking broadly. Obviously, not everyone that got promoted was undeserving. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is out of the fear, right, and the reactiveness, a lot of leaders were making decisions that they would not have made had they not been in an emotional position. And I'll give you an example. Here in Las Vegas, there was a gentleman who, before 2020, before George Floyd, he was a front desk manager. 8 weeks after George Floyd was killed, he was the director of diversity. There's no correlation. His qualification for that role was that he was Black. Problem number one. But that's a corporate. You're like, what does that have to do with DEI consultants? Oh, I'm going to get there. But this became this new model. Organizations, leaders, companies, businesses, whatever you want to call them, just started looking for ways to increase their diversity. Enter the consultants. And I use that term very loosely, the consultants. So now I was a receptionist, but now I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant because I am a Black woman and I am qualified to speak about the Black experience. And because of the fear, a white corporate leader is not questioning my qualifications or my abilities. They are saying, this person is Black, we need help, and we need a Black person. You're hired. Okay, so the consultant comes in. The consultant has no experience as a trainer, no experience as a leader. Most importantly, lacks the business acumen to look at this as a business problem. What happens? The trainings start. And everything about the training is based on being anti-racist. That's the basis. Anti-racist. Now, during 2020, shortly after George Floyd was killed, I probably received a text, phone call, DM from just about every white person I think I've ever met in my entire life, telling me that they were not racist. TaChelle, I want you to know that I'm not okay with what happened, and I'm not a racist. Well, I would hope not. Being white doesn't necessarily mean that you're a racist person, at least for my standards. But that is not what was happening with a lot of the DEI consultants. So DEI consultants are moving in and they're saying, your company is too white. You need to do something about it. As a business strategist, one of the very first questions I ask is, what does your community look like? Because your leadership should be a direct reflection of your community. So for example, if I walk into a company in Chicago and it's all white, I'm going to have some questions. However, if I walk into a company in Denver, Colorado, and it's all white, I don't have those same questions. So again, the challenge was you had people with no business experience, weren't looking at data or facts, making decisions solely based on their lived experience or their personal thoughts. Okay. The DEI trainings take place. Now the consultants are getting a little comfortable saying, we need you to tone down the whiteness because you're making me uncomfortable as a Black person. Everything about you is evil. Everything about you is you support white supremacy. You don't want me to win. You don't want me to be successful. This is what's being taught in a training. I've watched videos and all I can think is, why the hell would someone sit through this? Job be damned. I would get up and walk away. There's no way I'm going to sit in a room and listen to someone tell me that the only reason they have a problem with me is because I am a Black woman or because this person is white. There's no way on earth I'm sitting through that. And shame on the leaders who stood by and allowed this to happen. But again, fear. And corporations were paying for this. They were paying consultants to come in and conduct trainings like this. Now, the bigger problem, and this is where, again, I look back to the leaders like, what the hell were you thinking? Oh, wait, you were scared. In addition to the trainings, the number one question should have been, is behavior changing? We're talking about microaggressions, unconscious bias. These things are real. They happen. We all have biases. So that kind of training is helpful, especially when you're applying it to your business. Having an unconscious bias show up could end up costing you money. It could end up costing you your reputation. So understanding what biases you have that present a direct threat to the business is important. And that's how those biases trainings should have been conducted, but they were not. You were just told, hey, you suck because you're white. We need you to be less white. We need you to own your privilege. And if you don't own your privilege, it's because you're a racist. Again, why am I supporting this? So long story short, DEI consultants keep perpetuating this narrative, right? That unless you basically deny your whiteness, that you are part of the problem. Now, we all know that racism is very real, right? Pretending that it's not is just, it's being dishonest. It's real. There are plenty of situations where someone is treated differently because of their race, where someone is denied opportunities because of their gender. We know this. Part of why we ended up in this situation is because that is very true. But to generalize and say that everyone belonging to this race, this gender, this religion is this way is ridiculous. So fast forward a little bit, right? So we have chief diversity officers being hired left and right. You have employees being promoted from office coordinator to director of diversity, director of programming. And then these programs are failing. The trainings are failing. Why? Because you have people that don't know what the hell they're doing leading these trainings. You cannot train someone simply based on your lived experiences. You can share lived experiences, but you cannot create and conduct a full training program simply based on what I've lived through. That's a group, right? That's a safe group for you to go in and talk about your experience. It's not the same thing as being able to apply that to the business. And that is where organizations went wrong. They were writing checks, and we're talking a lot of money. It is projected that from June 2020 through December 2023, corporations spent over $9 billion on DEI trainings. I was considered a cleanup trainer or a cleanup consultant. One example, I came in after a trainer for a hospitality group. I'd like to see the report that the previous consultant put together. Oh yeah, sure. So I received the report. I'm looking through it, and I am immediately able to identify that it was a Black woman who was lesbian, simply based on the recommendations that this person made. I shouldn't be able to tell that. No one should. Almost every recommendation that that woman made was based on her own lived experience. There was no examination of the business. There was no understanding of who the customer base was. There was no understanding of their local demographics. There was no understanding of what the organization's goals were and where they wanted to grow and expand and scale. None of that was taken into consideration. DEI consultants destroyed DEI. If properly done, DEI is a game changer for business. And if you don't believe me, when you have someone like Mark Cuban, who is an unapologetic capitalist, a well-known shark, when you have someone like Mark Cuban saying, no, I pay attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I'm investing in this, that is because he sees the financial, right, and the performance benefits. Having a diverse team is good for business. you're able to close more gaps, you're able to identify more problems. More importantly, you're able to better service your customers. Because again, unless you live in a completely homogenous community, chances are you're going to need some degree of diversity. Having people that think and process differently is a competitive advantage. But that's not how DEI consultants viewed it. They viewed it as an opportunity to write some of their past and their lived experiences. Now, corporations are not absolved of this responsibility, because shame on leaders for not doing what you're supposed to do. And vet, ask questions, verify qualifications, make sure there's an alignment between what this person is going to talk about and train on and how it actually makes sense and fits your business. Because I'll tell you this, you walk into a company where the employees are 65% white, you force them into a training to tell them about how terrible they are for being white. You're not worried about them leaving? Could you afford for 65% of your damn employees to walk out? Nobody could. I don't care who you are. You can't afford to lose 65% of anything and still survive. DEI consultants destroyed DEI. So the E part of DEI, equity, this is definitely more about systems, opportunities, identifying that things have not been course corrected in a long time. We're still writing job descriptions, asking for degrees and qualifications that we don't really need. Do I need my receptionist to have a bachelor's degree? I don't. I need for this person to have great customer service, a pleasant voice, great follow through, reliable. What does that have to do with her having a degree? So this needed to be corrected. Using certain terms, modified, let's call it modernizing and doing good business, because that needs to happen ever so often in the business world. It just does. But the I part, the inclusion, this is where DEI consultants really, really screwed up. Because you cannot call yourself a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant if you are only including minorities. If you are coming in and your whole strategy is to discredit or disgrace white people or the majority, you're not inclusive. And that is also where corporations and where leaders should have said, no, this doesn't make sense. This isn't lining up. Why are we attacking this group in order to include this group? That doesn't work. So when you have employees that are pissed and they're like, I don't want to do any more DEI training, or I'm tired of going, because they're being mistreated. They're literally being told that their very existence is the problem. Not that they're rude, right? Or not that they're uncompromising or they're not good team players, which could be acceptable criticisms. Being critiqued and judged and told what to do simply, it's ridiculous. DEI consultants destroyed DEI. There's no data, there are no facts that support that you being a person or a non-person of color makes you evil. First of all, it's so ridiculous. But second, there is tons of data that supports diversity is good for business. Tons of data. DEI consultants destroy DEI, but more importantly, corporations let them. Let me know what you think. Drop some notes into the comments. I will definitely be in there responding, and stay tuned for my next video.